rare coins, where ordinary change hides extraordinary value.
Now take a close look at this coin. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. A Washington quarter you have seen thousands of times. Copper and nickel, light in the hand, the kind of coin most people spend without a second thought. But this is the 1974 D Washington quarter dollar, and under the right circumstances, it can tell a much deeper story than most people ever imagine. 1974 was a turbulent time in the United States. Inflation was high, the economy was under pressure, money moved fast, and coins were used constantly in everyday transactions. Quarters passed through gas stations, grocery stores, parking meters, vending machines, and cash registers without pause. Almost no one thought about saving them, and preservation was not a concern. That reality shaped the future of this coin. By 1974, silver had already been removed from circulating quarters for nearly a decade. The Washington quarter was now produced in a copper-nickel-clad composition, and the U.S. Mint was striking enormous quantities to meet public demand. The Denver Mint alone produced hundreds of millions of quarters that year, all marked with a small D beneath Washington's portrait. Because of those numbers, most people assume every 1974 D quarter is common and worthless. That assumption is where opportunity disappears. The design itself was familiar and trusted. George Washington's profile faces left on the obverse, calm and steady, with liberty above his head and "In God We Trust" beside his neck. On the reverse, the eagle stands with outstretched wings, arrows clutched firmly in its talons, symbolizing strength and readiness. By this point in history, Americans barely notice the design anymore. But rarity does not always come from age or precious metal. Sometimes rarity comes from mistakes. Among the millions of 1974 D Washington quarters struck, a very small number were created with notable mint errors. These errors occurred during die preparation, striking, or planchet handling, and they produced coins that were never supposed to exist. Collectors pay close attention to doubled die varieties on this date. On genuine doubled die quarters, the lettering in Liberty, "In God We Trust," or the date itself, shows clear doubling that is raised, not flat. This is not damage or wear. It is a mistake embedded into the die itself. Other valuable errors include off-center strikes, where the design is visibly shifted away from the center, broad strikes, where the coin spreads beyond its normal rim, clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is missing due to improper metal cutting, and major die cracks, which appear as raised lines running through the design. Most people never notice these differences because they can be subtle. A slightly distorted rim, a doubled letter, a misaligned design. These coins were spent like ordinary change, mixed into circulation, and forgotten. Condition changes everything. A worn error coin can still be valuable, but one that survived in clean, uncirculated condition is far rarer. Most 1974 D quarters were scratched, bag-marked, or damaged long before collectors knew what to look for. Finding a sharp original example today is difficult. Because of that scarcity, collector demand can be strong. In confirmed cases, error examples of 1974 D Washington quarters have sold for impressive prices. Moderate errors in decent condition can sell for hundreds of dollars. Strong doubled dies and dramatic off-center strikes have reached $1,000 to $3,000. And in rare cases where condition and error severity align, select examples have climbed even higher at auction. Pause on that for a moment. A quarter with a face value of 25 cents selling for thousands of dollars simply because it broke the rules of minting. Even without major errors, collectors still search for flawless high-grade examples. Coins graded at the top mint state levels with strong luster and clean surfaces can sell for $100 to $300, especially when demand is strong and population numbers are low. Here's what most people never realize. These quarters are still everywhere, sitting in jars, old collections, inherited boxes, bank rolls that were never checked carefully. Because they look modern and familiar, they are often ignored. That is a costly mistake. If you ever come across a 1974 D Washington quarter, slow down. Examine it carefully. Look closely at the lettering. Check the rims and edges. Use magnification to search for doubling or unusual features. Compare it to a normal example. And, whatever you do, never clean it. Cleaning removes original surfaces, destroys luster, and permanently reduces collector value. A rare error coin can lose most of its worth in seconds if it is clean. Now take a close look at this coin. At first glance, it looks ordinary, plain, familiar. A Washington quarter you've seen countless times. Light in the hand, copper and nickel. The kind of coin most people never stop to examine. But this is the 1966 Washington quarter dollar. And it comes from one of the most confusing and misunderstood periods in American coinage history. 1966 was a year of transition and pressure for the United States Mint. Silver prices had surged. And just 1 year earlier, silver had been removed from circulating quarters for the first time in decades. Americans reacted fast. They hoarded silver coins. Banks ran short. Coin shortages became severe across the country. To fight this crisis, the U.S. Mint made several radical decisions. One of the most controversial was the temporary removal of mint marks. From 1965 through 1967, quarters were struck without mint marks to discourage collectors from saving coins. The goal was simple: keep money moving, stop hoarding, force coins back into circulation. That decision makes the 1966 quarter unique. Every 1966 Washington quarter was struck without a mint mark, regardless of where it was produced. Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco all produced quarters that year, but none carried identifying letters. To most people, that makes them seem boring. To collectors, it makes them fascinating. The design itself remained unchanged. George Washington's profile, faces left on the obverse, calm and dignified, with liberty above his head, and "In God We Trust" beside his neck. On the reverse, the eagle stands with wings spread wide, arrows clutched in its talons, a symbol of strength during uncertain times. But the metal composition had changed forever. Unlike pre-1965 quarters made of 90% silver, the 1966 quarter is clad. A copper core sandwiched between layers of nickel. To many people, this made the coin feel less valuable. And because of that belief, millions were spent without hesitation. Almost none were saved. That is where the story begins. Because rarity does not always come from low mintage. Sometimes it comes from survival. Most 1966 quarters were heavily circulated. Scratches, bag marks, weak strikes, and dull surfaces are common. Finding one is easy. Finding one that is sharp, clean, and untouched is extremely difficult. Collectors pay close attention to condition on this date. Strong hair detail on Washington. Clean fields without heavy marks. Original luster that still flows across the surface when tilted in light. These qualities separate ordinary coins from valuable ones. Errors add another layer. During this rushed period of production, mistakes happened. Collectors look for doubled dies on the obverse, especially in the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. Genuine doubled dies show raised, rounded doubling, not flat shelf-like wear. Other valuable errors include off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and major die cracks. These coins were never supposed to leave the mint, yet many slipped into circulation unnoticed. Most people never notice these details because they are subtle. A slightly doubled letter, a shifted rim, a crack through the design. These coins were spent, mixed, and forgotten. Condition makes all the difference. A worn error coin may still carry value, but one that survived in uncirculated or near-perfect condition is far rarer. Many high-grade examples were destroyed by cleaning, mishandling, or storage damage before collectors understood their importance. Because of that scarcity, demand remains strong. In confirmed cases, high-grade 1966 Washington quarters have sold for hundreds of dollars. Exceptional mint state examples, especially those with strong strikes and clean surfaces, have reached $1,000 to $3,000 at auction. Error coins can climb even higher depending on severity and condition. Pause on that. A quarter once dismissed as worthless now selling for thousands of dollars simply because it survived differently. Here's what most people never realize. These coins are still out there, sitting in jars, old collections, inherited boxes, bank rolls that were never examined closely. Because there is no mint mark and no silver, many people assume there is nothing worth checking. That assumption is costly. If you ever come across a 1966 Washington quarter, slow down. Examine it carefully. Look for strong luster. Check the lettering for doubling. Inspect the rims and edges. Use magnification. Compare it to a known circulated example. And whatever you do, never clean it. Cleaning removes original surfaces, destroys collector appeal, and permanently reduces value. A rare high-grade quarter can lose most of its worth in seconds if cleaned. If the coin looks unusually sharp or shows unusual features, have it professionally authenticated and graded. Certification confirms condition, protects value, and separates genuine mint errors from damage. Because sometimes, value is not about